Cole Eiserman has seen his draft stock fall in the season. Red flag or steal of the century?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Probably part of the Locked On Network, where we cover your team every day. And today, Stephen Ellis of the Daily Faceoff joins for another draft profile where we talk about Cole Eiserman and if it's really warranted for his draft stock to have plummeted, why he could be a potential steal for the Sharks, especially if he does fall. So we talk about his draft, his development timeline, all that good stuff. And then I asked Steven about his latest mock draft and discuss what he would do if a couple things are differently if he was Mike Grier. So before we get to all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. And now we bring in Stephen Ellis from Daily Faceoff. Stephen, how's it going, buddy?
I can't complain. You know, we're the trade deadline's over, which is really nice because then people are starting to shift their eyes to this thing called the NHL draft, and it's also tournament season. We're starting to get into that. The Women's World Championship, the college hockey, the Memorial Cup's not far from now. Centennial Cup, World Championship. Oh boy, it's going to get fun.
Yeah, your life is just going to get more and more busy as things get ramped up here. So we're going to talk about one of your favorite players that you've told me, at least you've said multiple times to me, he's one of your favorite players in this draft. And that's Cole Eiserman. So if you don't know Cole Eiserman, a forward with the U.S. national team, 6 foot, 196 pounds. This season in 45 games, 48 goals, 25 assists, 216 shots on goal. And Steven, as I ask everybody, what makes Cole Eiserman such an intriguing prospect?
There isn't a better goal scorer in this draft. No question about it. You know, you look at the U.S. national team development program, and that's just one team. You know, it's not like he's going out there and necessarily breaking league records, but and they track stats a little differently. Like they track exhibition games as part of the full season. You know, a preseason game is not going to count towards John Mustard scoring a goal in the USHL. I don't know why that's the first player I thought of. But when
John Mustard taking strays,
it's a great. No, he's a great player. He's a great name. But when it comes to the way Eiserman plays, like the last guy to score like he has, who currently holds the NTDP record with goals in a season, is Cole Caulfield, and like that beats out Austin Matthews and Jack Eichel, Jack Hughes, all these great players. And Cole Eiserman could go out there and break that record this year. So he's gonna have a pretty good end to the season, and that U18 tournament will probably be a good way for him to kind of push that goal count forward here. But just few guys can shoot the puck like he can. He's got an outstanding shot. He's pretty competitive. Like I remember watching him a couple times this year in person, where he was probably the most physical guy on the ice, which you didn't see from him last year. But every time he plays internationally, he's dominant. He's had a good line mate in James Hagens, a top 2025 prospect by his side throughout a lot of it. They actually were split up for a little bit this year, but it seems like no matter who he's playing with, he just scores at will from anywhere. He's got the best release on a one-timer, 100%. He picks corners like it's nothing. This guy's got so much talent, and he's a good personality too. He's one of my favorite prospects to talk to in this draft because he's got a lot to say, and he's also like very, very good friends with Macklin Celebrini. They used to be roommates together at Shattuck St. Marie. So that connection's really cool. And I know that a lot of people are looking at, you know, the way that Eiserman has fallen in a lot of public rankings. It's not necessarily because he's having a bad season. He's actually playing as good as people thought he was. But I guess we'll talk about that after.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's go right there, right? Coming into this draft, it was, we knew Macklin Celebrini was most likely going to be, or at least going into the season, we knew it was going to be Macklin Celebrini. And then Cole Eiserman was kind of considered at least number 2 guy, him and Demidov. Demidov has been playing well. I know he's had some injuries, but he's still kind of considered one of the top prospects in this. Why is Eiserman kind of falling down the rankings? You look at a lot of again, public scouts, take it with a grain of salt. No offense, but it is what it is, right? We, as public scouts, you rank stuff, and then of course, when it gets to draft day, things happen. But why is Eiserman kind of seen to have been falling this season compared to where he was headed into this year?
I think the big reason why, again, it's not necessarily because he's having a bad season, but because people wanted to see a bit more away from the puck, and that was a concern last year where. When he came up with the U18 team, him and Hagens are playing on a third line, and they could just dominate any other team's line that would try to match up against them, especially at the U18s. And I think the issue with him is just the way that Eiserman needs to be more effective away from the puck. And one example was at points last year watching Will Smith, where you'd see him. He's the guy that people were drawn to see. That top line was so good, and there were points where he looked like he was just kind of trailing around, not being as effective as he should be, not always attacking guys. But when he turned it on, it worked. And Eiserman can do that too. Different types of players. One's a center that can do a lot two-way. The other's a pure goal scorer. But that's the thing. He's a pure goal scorer. If you're going to be good at anything, I want it to be putting pucks in the net, because last I checked, that is the most important part of playing hockey and winning games. But it's the, not being very engaged defensively, letting guys kind of just skate past them and just kind of letting it happen. There's just the effort level isn't always there. And that's not always uncommon for players at this level, where they've kind of dominated throughout their junior years, their minor hockey years, where everyone knows this guy could score at will. When they need a goal, you put him out there, he's going to do it. But then maybe hasn't always had to play a lot of defense. I think the one tournament that he didn't participate in, but the one event that really kind of shows how bad defensively a lot of really top end forwards are, is the Hlinka Gretzky Cup, the tournament that starts the scouting season. And that's because so many of those players had just kind of had to play scoring roles throughout their whole career. Some of them may have even done it as their first year in playing in the CHL. And then all of a sudden are having to play defense, and it just looks like a total mess because they haven't really had to get that type of reliability. A good example of that is Cal Ritchie, who last year, he 2 years ago, he was great in Oshawa, putting up great points. And then last year, it felt like a bit of a disappointment because he focused more on the defensive side of things and didn't put up the numbers we were expecting to do. And suddenly he's one of the best two-way forwards out of that draft class, and maybe a top 10 prospect in the game right now. Cole Eiserman hasn't got to the point of really focusing on the defensive side of things. And that's something in college he will have to do because the players are faster, the players will hit harder, they'll make you pay if you're getting lazy out there. So you really got to take your game to another level there. And I think he's capable of it, but just away from the puck, I'm a little concerned that he just doesn't do enough. Again, I like the physicality aspect of it, but I want to see him in the NHL. You're bringing him in to be a top line scoring threat. You're not going to have him out there killing penalties, being the defensive guy out there. But if he adds that element, then he becomes way more well-rounded. A guy like Caden Lindstrom's got that size, but he also blocks shots, hits guys, plays defensive, and scores. So that's why a lot of people are putting him ahead. So Eiserman is a bit one-dimensional at this point, but if he can just, again, if he just commits to just focusing next year on maybe not putting up 1,000 goals and playing that defense, could be huge. But the way it's working out for him, the success a lot of the time is when he's scoring goals, and there's no reason for him to change that right now. So we'll see kind of how that adjusts when he gets to college.
So, I mean, you talk about the shot. What makes his shot so special? Why is it the best shot in the class?
There's so many factors of it, and talking to scouts at the U18s last year, the couple things that really kind of stood out was combine Ovechkin's one-timer with Austin Matthews' wrist shot. Those are two of the best goal scorers in the world. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be that level of dominant, but you watch him practice one-timers and warm-ups, and he never misses the net. He's always hitting top corner, always picking angles, and he does it so quickly, no hesitation. A lot of the times, though, it'll be funny just watching him, and a lot of good goal scorers will kind of just look like, okay, not really doing a whole lot, and then all of a sudden, puck comes, boom, instant goal.
Yep.
It's just such a quick release. Whether it be the slap shot, whether it be the wrist shot, he's got the skill to dangle guys, but that's not really his game. His thing is picking corners and finding different angles to shoot from. And I don't have a shot map with me, but from watching him this year, I've seen him score from just about everywhere, and that's because he just puts so much power and so much accuracy. And I asked him last year, kind of what goes into your shot, and he's just like, if I have a free half hour or even a free 10 minutes and I'm at home and I just need something to do, I'll go out there and start shooting pucks. And that's not uncommon. Connor Bedard said the same thing, but that's just something that you could tell he puts a lot of focus in. And he's a strong guy. That's what helps too. He's physically stronger than a guy like Bedard last year, where he put a lot, like the flex on that shot, the way he released it, so deceptive, but he's more of an all-around player as opposed to Eiserman, who, you could see he's got that strength to just shoot from anywhere and with that power you're looking for. So goalies have a hard time with that, and I think that's really cool because I love goal scorers. That's kind of important in hockey, and he does it better than anybody else.
All right, guys, before we continue with our good friend Steven, where we discuss kind of Eiserman's development, why he thinks he might only need 1 year in college. So we'll kind of get into that, where he would fit in the Sharks pipeline, all that good stuff here in just 1 second. If you want to go get tickets for, maybe you want to go catch a Warriors game before the season's over, you want to catch a Giants game, or for some reason you want to go watch the Sharks before their season ends, you got to go check out Game Time. They have killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from their seats, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Thing I love about Game Time is you can actually see what your seats are going to look like. You can go in there, click on them, see what you will see when you get there. Nothing worse than getting to the actual event and realizing you have bad seats. Actually, the only thing worse is when you go to check out and other companies slam a bunch of fees on top of you. With Game Time's all-in pricing, you know exactly what you're going to pay when you check out. No surprises. So Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind when you purchase. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so we know he's going to go to Boston University next season, and you talked kind of about his development, but what do you think is kind of a timeline for him? I know it's really hard, especially with so many questions with him of like, can he play at least a manageable two-way game, or at least be, just not a complete negative in the defensive zone? So what type of realistic timeline are you looking at for him before he kind of starts to make an NHL impact?
I really think it's kind of, it may really depend on the team that drafts him and how badly they need them. But I think it's looking like I think it should be 1 year because I think he's got an NHL skill set, pro level skill set that he's been able to show at an early age. And I think, a lot of things will be made about like the U17, U18 team. Like, look how great this U17 guy is playing against U18. It's like, well, it's junior hockey. In a lot of cases, like 17-year-olds will be playing against 20-year-olds if they're on a completely different team, right? So that part doesn't matter too much. But the way he's been able to just kind of dominate against his peers kind of shows that he's got, again, so much skill. And if you fit him in the right situation where you can, where he could, it doesn't need to be the defensive guy, where you've got maybe a good two-way center who could do everything. Like, let's say he falls and San Jose gets Pittsburgh's pick, and then, Eiserman's available. Like, if you were to put him with Salabrini, that would be amazing, because then you got the guy who could do everything else there, or even Will Smith. Obviously, who knows how that's going to work out. But I just think the way that he's able to just dominate with that shot, that's NHL ready. It's whether or not, his skating's there, whether his defensive game's there. I think he only really needs a year to kind of get prepared for that.
So, I mean, you talk about kind of like his development. and the skating stuff. One thing to keep in mind is like how young he is. He doesn't turn 18 till at the end of August here. So he's going to be like when he goes to college, he's still going to be one of the younger players, not Mac Celebrini young, but like he's still going to be one of the younger players in there. And he's already has like an NHL shot. He's 6', 196. Like it seems like he's already getting close to being an NHL frame before he's even drafted. And yes, he's still gonna have to put on more muscle and work on his skating, all that fun stuff. But like it feels like there's a really solid foundation to work with here, right?
He didn't get projected to be number 2 by accident. Like this is a guy that through there's been that's the thing. It's so easy to overrate a player pretty early on. Like Aaron Kiviharu, for example, was projected at one point to be the top prospect for 2024. Wasn't going to be that case when Celebrini really started to emerge. But we were talking about him when he was 11 years old. Like that's what his the first HF Boards post was about him. So it's pretty easy to overhype prospects a lot because the ones that kind of like get shown up in the mainstream or in the consciousness of like more of the diehard hockey fans, we're already seeing guys from like 2009, 2010 born kids getting into that situation now. I know. It's nuts. But watching what Eiserman's able to do, I think that I still have him as a top 5 prospect in this draft because I still think the talent's there. I still think that it's not as big of a having to fix type thing as some people might make it out to be. But you look at a guy like Patrick Laine, who was strong and scored a lot and maybe didn't always put the effort in every single night. And then he wasn't as effective when he wasn't scoring. I know there's some concerns about that, but I think with Eiserman, it's just, I don't think he's that far away as some might make it seem, where it's like, oh yeah, he's really falling, like this is not good. It's like, no, it's like I think he's got the talent, just he's got to put it in every single night. And I think college is going to be a good wake-up call for him because again, when you're on a team that can dominate at will and go out there and beat some of the best, go out there and beat college teams, that's great. Now you're going to be where everyone's at the same level and you're going to be facing again stronger, faster, older players on a consistent basis, some guys that are ready to go pro. It's going to be something where like that's where he's got to show what he can do, and I'm confident he's going to be able to do it.
Yeah, and Hockey East is a gauntlet. If it's watching this season, watching Will Smith and like you're playing top end teams like night in, night out. It's a bit of a gauntlet. So this is again, you're going to be facing the best of the best here, and we'll see who's left of after this year. But it's not like those teams aren't just restocking with some of the best prospects coming in. So where does he kind of fit with the Sharks, right? If the Sharks were to draft him, because I mean, we kind of already have Mom, can we get a Cole Eiserman? I have a Cole Eiserman at home. His name's Casper Halttunen, who can rip shots like crazy. How would you, I know Halttunen's a little bit different player, but like there's a little bit of an overlap there, right?
Yeah, like there is. I'd say slightly different player. I would rather have Eiserman 100 times out of 100, but Halttunen, but again, Eiserman's one of my favorite prospects in this draft, and Halttunen was one of my favorites last year's draft because that dude is just pure violence, mostly with just how powerful that shot is. I don't know if I've ever seen a shot harder in person. So I love watching him play, and Eiserman does a lot of the same, but I just think there's more skill there, more upside. Like this is a guy that Halttunen, I do worry would be, I'm not sure what his impact would be maybe outside of a primarily power play goal scorer role, as opposed to Eiserman, who I think could put up 30 goals, no problem. And I expect him to go and get 50 goals. So I think that this just kind of, he can play, any situation where you give him open space and he's going to make it work. I think there's less to fix in his game. Like, I think he's a better skater than Halttunen. I think he's a smarter player than Halttunen. So like that, I think he would be easily, again, top line player if they were able to get him with a second pick. And again, you put him with Celebrini, you've got one of the best 1-2 duos in the entire league. No question about it, because those two guys know how to play together so well. And I think that alone would be great. So I don't know if it's just dreaming now for some Sharks fans there, but I would be very happy if I was a team in the top 10 picking Cole Eiserman.
All right. So, kind of just looking at the rest of the Sharks prospect pool, right? You have Will Smith, who I think we can all agree is the number one prospect in the Sharks pool heading in before we head into the draft. And then, however you want to put Quentin Musty and Daniel Gush and some of the other guys, where would you kind of slot Eiserman in to that? Like, especially I would assume that the big comparison is going to be Eiserman and Musty. Musty's having an amazing season in the OHL. Are you putting Eiserman over Will Smith? Where are you kind of slotting him in?
I think I'd be, again, ignoring whoever they take. If they
yes,
take,
we're ignoring. Yes,
if they take Celebrini, sure. I think with him, I'd be putting him right behind Smith, and I love Musty having a great season. I just think that the way that Eiserman controls that puck and can put it anywhere he wants is something that we just don't often see. So I'm putting him number 2. I think Will Smith is just kind of in a league of his own there. He's just so I love him as a two-way player. I love that everything
you've been very much on the Will Smith is like should be playing in the NHL next year. Like you've been on the beginning of that. A lot of people are like, I don't know. You were like from the beginning, like Will Smith's going to be NHL ready like in one season type of like I will give you that credit. Yeah.
I just don't know how much he would benefit from going back for a second season. Like I could see if they don't send him back, I'm not going to be like, oh well, that sucks. It's like he's there. He can go out there and try to chase a national championship, but without Cutter Gauthier, we'll see kind of how that happens. Assuming Gauthier, of course, turns pro with the Anaheim Ducks there, which man, that's going to be some fun battles there for a little bit, I'd have to say. But I think I'm huge on Smith. I just think that when he turns on his game, he was maybe not Connor Bedard dominant last year, maybe not Adam Fantilli dominant, but he was up there. He could just do things that very few players. And I think that for all the attention that Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault got for putting pucks in the net, like I don't think people gave enough love to how important Smith was to making those plays happen in any scenario. So I like him a lot.
All right, before we get to Steven Ellis's mock draft, where I mock him for his terrible picks on his mock. No, we talk about his mock draft, what he would do in some different situations if he was Mike Grier. So we'll get to that here in just 1 minute. Passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has got everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guarantee Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guarantee Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, let's talk about your latest mock draft. So you put out a mock draft on March 12th. One incredibly wrong, as now these Sharks are the number one odds, but no, I'm not going to give you too much slack for that. But so I was curious on your thoughts here, at least with the Sharks, say they don't get Celebrini. You had them picking Silyev, the defenseman out of the KHL, who is very tall. So why did you kind of go in that direction, especially with how many defensemen there kind of are in that mix? So I was just kind of curious, what was your thought process behind going Silyev?
So yeah, of course the Chicago Blackhawks going out there and winning the night that I put that out, and the Sharks take over the top spot. Did not.
I definitely didn't give you any slack at all on Twitter.
That was pretty funny, and we knew that was probably there was a potential for that, but I don't think expecting the Blackhawks to win like they did. It was like, okay, cool. When it comes to my Pixiliev there, from talking to others kind of around the NHL, it's like, well, what are your thoughts here? And a lot of them thought that would be a good fit because he instantly you got Will Smith. He's your number one center. And there's an argument to be made. They probably will need an even better winger at this point. But when it comes to what Silyev does, he's got that size. He moves so well, really smart for what he is. Like scouts talking to him, like, what do you see here? A lot see Victor Hedman, and he would instantly become the team's number one defenseman. You can build around him. And I know the Sharks have added a lot of, good young prospects in the last couple of years on the blue line. I'm a big Jack Thompson fan. I think that guy's got a pretty good future. And then obviously Mukamadulin, but like Silyev, takes it over there because he's got something that a lot of defensemen in this draft can't say they have. But then he also, like, the offense might not stand out on the page. I don't know the exact number he finished with in the regular season, but it was like still like one of the best seasons we've ever seen from a draft eligible defenseman, or even in general, a KHL draft eligible defenseman. Like, this guy's just did some great stuff this year. I think he raised a lot of eyebrows at the beginning of the season when he was putting up a point per game, and it's like, whoa, like, never saw this happening. Nobody thought that was going to last, and it didn't.
Yeah.
But a guy that moves like he does, has the reach he does, he's got the size he does, who can block shots, do everything, play power play, penalty kill. He's an all-around talent, and I love his future. So there's a lot of talent on the blue line at this year's draft. No question about it. There's Lev Shunov, and we've talked about him already. We've talked about where there's other guys like Sam Dickinson, very well-rounded. I think a guy that people are going to get really excited about. Steve Bouillem, Zane Parekh, on pace for close to 100 points this year in the OHL. Unbelievable.
Ridiculous.
But none have the absolute just sheer dominance and poise that Silyev has, and a lot of scouts I've talked to say he's the best defenseman in this draft.
Yeah, and you talk about like the other Sharks prospects. If you draft Silyev, everybody else kind of slots in properly. Mikko Medulin, who's probably like a 2 or 3 defenseman, slots into that spot. Jack Thompson, who I think you and I are both, I love the Jack Thompson trade. I thought it was a great trade for the Sharks. Maybe he's your second right-handed defenseman. Like everyone kind of feels like they're in their natural spots. Maybe kind of getting pushed up. That's been a problem with the Sharks right now. Is guys are getting pushed up, like Mikael Granlund, your 1C, because you just don't have anybody else right now to play 1C. I love Mikael Granlund. He probably shouldn't be playing 1C anywhere else because again. But hey. Mikael Granlund leading the tank right now. All right, let's talk about the Pittsburgh pick. So again, I know you picked this for the Penguins, who you picked Berkeley Catton, who I talked about with Josh Tesler on Tuesday's episode. Excuse me. If say the Penguins kind of, we'll say keeping your draft the same. The Sharks pick. They go ahead and they pick Silyev at number 2. Are you still, if you're the Sharks, are you still picking Berkeley Catton there, or are you maybe going in a different kind of a different spot?
Yeah, I guess it really depends. Again, if San Jose gets that pick, I think. I wouldn't be surprised if Eiserman's available, like legitimately, if he's available. I think Berkeley Catton is this year's Zach Benson, and that's what I wrote about him in my draft thing. I said, he's he's an extremely skilled forward, not a big guy, but he can just do so much with the puck. Now, of course, you look at the center depth in San Jose coming up, and maybe he's not the value there, but I think you still got to go best player available, and I think that
always
Catton, if he fell out of like 9th or 10th, I think teams are making a mistake once again, like they did with Zach Benson last year. And by the way, for Benson, I thought he should have not been in the NHL this year. I thought he should go back to the WHL, and hit or miss this year in terms of how his production's gone. Obviously, he's dealt with some injuries, and you're asking a lot for a smaller guy to kind of have to play a big role right away. I thought junior was the right way to go, so I'm not counting the fact he made the NHL in his first year as part of a woohoo yet. But I think that Berkeley Catton just downright dominant in the WHL. So I think the thing here with this year's draft is number 1 is very clear. Yeah. And every year there's always like, oh, what happens after number 1? That's when it gets interesting. I think last year it wasn't that crazy. Like there was, most could probably predict that Michkov was going to fall. And then after that, there was Fantilli and Carlson and Smith and those guys, and where they landed, like those weren't a surprise. Like everyone kind of
we kind of knew all these guys are the same bucket. It's just who do you like better, right? And
exactly.
So everyone was a bit surprised. A little bit. I think people were surprised that Carlson went number 2, but again, it's not like it was some huge drop off between Carlson and Fantilli. It's just kind of which one do you like better, right? So
exactly. So this year it's kind of a bit more open. Like, what about Caden Lidstrom, who's missed so much time, but he's 6'5" and knocks people over? And what about Eiserman? Does he fall? Does Zane Parekh go higher? Like, I have Parekh higher than my draft rankings in my mock draft because I think that teams are going to take a chance on his upside there. The fact that he is going to score. He might score 50 goals in the OHL next year in Saginaw, especially if Michael Misa there again. So I love what he's able to do, or these guys are able to do. There's a lot of talent here. The talent, after about 15th pick starts to fall off a little bit. If I'm picking best player available and Berkeley Catton's there's not a lot of guys that I would take over him because I'm just really that high on him. The skill level is there for him to be 5'10", 5'11" star in the NHL.
All right. So let's just say the Sharks luck out. They get Celebrini. They still get that Pittsburgh pick. We'll just kind of say that 9-10 pick. Who are you going? Are you maybe targeting a defenseman there? Which defenseman would you maybe target if the Sharks want to try to walk away with their 1C of the future and then a blue chip defensive prospect?
Well, I guess it really depends if it's Zeev Buium or Sam Dickinson, which one's available there. Because I think one should be available then, as things kind of currently work out. With Buium having one of the best seasons we've seen from a U19 defenseman, like on par, if not better in a lot of instances, than Lane Hudson last year. The difference, Lane Hudson was drafted by the Montreal Canadiens. Zeev Buium is undrafted, so the average fan base is not paying attention to that. But it's just as remarkable of a season at the University of Denver. I thought he had a pretty solid World Junior tournament. And just every time I watch him, I see someone that's just brimming with potential, and I think it's only going to get better as he continues to improve. But when it comes to Sam Dickinson, a mobile 6'3" defenseman, he's kind of like the defenseman where it might not be the most interesting pick, but he can do everything. He can play power play, play penalty kill, block shots, score, hit, do everything. Like he could do so much. And a guy like that's very valuable around those picks. So I'd say those are the two to definitely keep an eye on.
All right, we'll get you out your last two questions. Last time I asked you who you thought was going to be, other than Macklin Celebrini, the best player in the draft. So this time I'm going to ask in these top 10, which kind of guys you're projected to go top 10, which guy makes you a little nervous of him going to the top 10?
Caden Lidstrom. A lot of people have him higher than I do. I think that he can play some good D. He can do a lot of things. He's got that size. We just don't see a lot of 6'5" guys play like that, right? Like obviously you're looking at there and he's a little shorter of a Tage Thompson type player, and that's very good. But again, you just don't see guys like that really thrive. And I kind of worried that could it be in the Quinton Byfield era where people get super hyped on him. He's got that size, could be that power forward. And it takes a while for them to really kind of show up.
Yep.
I like Caden Lidstrom, but the fact he's also missed like close to half a season now at this point, how well is he going to bounce back? I'm not sure yet. So we'll see. I still think he's a fantastic prospect, but I think I'm definitely lower on him than a lot of people are.
All right, and last question. Where does Cole Eiserman go in the NHL draft?
Right now, I got him going 7th. And I don't know if it's still Montreal's pick at this point, but man,
it still is Montreal. Congratulations, Montreal. You have Cole Eiserman and Cole Caulfield. Just oh my, the branding alone right there is well worth the pick. You can just having Suzuki just slinging passes to both those guys and just
Well, it's funny because then you're thinking about it and it's like, okay, so Plymouth, Michigan, is that the birthplace of Montreal Canadiens goal scorers at this point here? Because they had Caulfield, the development team, and they got Eiserman. So I think it just depends on if teams are willing to take a chance. Because again, the upside is there for him to be a 50 goal scorer. You don't find those guys often in the draft. There's not many in the NHL as it is. You don't want to give up on that, but is there enough other concerns in the way he plays that maybe they're worried about it? I don't know yet. All
right, Steven, you said it all. Where can the people find you, buddy?
Yeah, well, my Twitter /X/ whatever you want to call it at this time of the year, SLS Hockey. I tweet literally anything, prospects, NHL. A lot of exciting events coming up this year. One of my favorite tournaments of the entire year is the OHL Cup, and you guys probably have no idea what that is, but that is the U16 tournament here. That's all the guys go in the OHL draft. A couple of famous guys that have played in this tournament. Connor McDavid, is kind of a big deal. Aaron Ekblad.
I've heard of him.
Jack Hughes, guys like that. So it's one of my favorite events of the year. I'm always at it every year. And so I'll be doing a lot of that. And of course, at dailyfaceoff.com, pretty much going to be close to daily prospect coverage leading up all the way to the NHL draft in Vegas, which I'm very excited about because I'm excited to see the Dome or whatever.
Yeah, I can't wait. We'll definitely have to meet up. I owe you a beer for all your appearances. So, Steven, until next time, thanks, buddy.
Yes, thanks so much.
All right, guys, hope you enjoyed my conversation with Steven. Cole Eiserman is going to be an interesting prospect as we get closer to the draft. and see kind of where he finishes up. So again, thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. You can find us wherever you get podcasts, and of course you can watch on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryHole. Until tomorrow, bye friends.